Welcome to another exploration of the most chilling tales from history. In today's episode, we unravel the story of Mary Ann Cotton, a name that sent shivers down the spines of many in 19th century England. Born in 1832 in a small village in Durham, she would go on to become one of the most infamous figures in British true crime history. Suspected of murdering up to 21 people, including her own children, husbands, and stepchildren, Cotton's life was marked by tragedy and deceit. Her motives were chillingly clear: financial gain through insurance policies. Imagine a mother, seemingly nurturing, who would go to such lengths to secure a payout, leaving a trail of grief and suspicion in her wake. The intrigue surrounding her story lies not only in the gruesome details, but also in the societal context of the time. Victorians were fascinated by crime, and Cotton's case captivated the public, leading to sensationalized media coverage and a trial that would become a spectacle. Born in 1832 in the small village of Low Moorsley, County Durham, England, the socio-economic conditions of the time played a crucial role in Mary Ann Cotton's development. The Industrial Revolution had transformed England, but for many it meant long hours of labour and little financial security. This environment fostered a sense of desperation, and for Mary Ann, it may have ignited a desire for a more comfortable life. When Mary Ann was 8 years old, her family moved to the village of Merton in County Durham. However, tragedy struck soon after the move when her father fell 150 feet to his death down a mine shaft at Merton Colliery in February 1842. His body was delivered to her mother in a sack bearing the stamp "Property of the South Hetton Coal Company." The family's miner's cottage was tied to her father's job, and his death left the widow and children facing eviction. In 1843, Mary Ann's mother remarried George Stott, also a miner. At 16, Mary Ann left home to work as a nurse in the nearby village of South Hetton, caring for the family of Edward Potter, a manager at Merton Colliery. After Potter's children were sent to boarding school over the next 3 years, Mary Ann returned to her stepfather's home and trained as a dressmaker. Mary Ann Cotton's marital history is as complex as it is tragic. In 1852, at the age of 20, Mary Ann married her first husband, William Mowbray. The young couple soon moved to the southwest of England, where they began to build a family. However, dark clouds loomed over their life together, as reports from the time of Mary Ann's trial suggested that 4 or 5 of their children died young while living away from County Durham. None of these deaths were officially registered, as the law requiring registration, though technically in place, was not strictly enforced until 1874. The only child whose birth was recorded was their daughter, Margaret Jane, born in 1856. After some years, William and Mary Ann returned to northeast England, where William took on work as a fireman aboard a steam vessel out of Sunderland, and later as a colliery foreman. During this time, their family grew with the birth of another daughter, Isabella, in 1858. However, tragedy struck in 1860 with the death of their daughter, Margaret Jane. In 1861, they welcomed another daughter, also named Margaret Jane, and in 1863, a son, John Robert William, was born, only to die the following year from gastric fever. In January 1865, William himself succumbed to an intestinal disorder, leaving Mary Ann widowed. However, his death was not without financial gain for Mary Ann, as she collected a £35 payout from the British and Prudential Insurance Office, where she had insured both William's life and the lives of their children. This tragic pattern of loss and financial benefit would soon become all too familiar in the dark narrative of Mary Ann Cotton's life. Soon after William Mowbray's death, Mary Ann moved to Seaham Harbour in County Durham, where she began a relationship with a man named Joseph Nattrass. Tragedy struck again when her 3-year-old daughter, the second Margaret Jane, succumbed to typhus fever, leaving Mary Ann with only one surviving child out of the 9 she had born. Seeking a fresh start, she returned to Sunderland and took up a position at the Sunderland Infirmary, House of Recovery for the Cure of Contagious Fever, Dispensary, and Humane Society. During this time, she sent her remaining daughter, Isabella, to live with her mother. At the infirmary, Mary Ann met George Ward, an engineer suffering from poor health. The two were married on August 28, 1865, at St. Peter's Church in Monkwearmouth. However, George's health continued to deteriorate, and he died on October 20, 1866, after a long illness marked by paralysis and intestinal issues. His death certificate listed English cholera and typhoid as the causes, but the attending doctor later testified that while Ward had been very ill, his sudden death had been unexpected. Despite the suspicious circumstances, Mary Ann once again collected insurance money following her husband's demise, further deepening the shadow of suspicion that surrounded her. James Robinson, a shipwright in Pally Sunderland, was grieving the recent loss of his wife, Hannah, when he hired Mary Ann as his housekeeper in November 1866. Just a month later, tragedy struck again. James's infant son, John, died of gastric fever. Seeking comfort, James turned to his housekeeper, and soon Mary Ann was pregnant. In the midst of this, Mary Ann received word that her mother, who lived in Seaham Harbour, County Durham, had fallen ill with hepatitis. She rushed to her side, but while her mother initially showed signs of recovery, she suddenly began complaining of severe stomach pains. Within 9 days of Mary Ann's arrival, her mother died at the age of 54 in the spring of 1867. Once again, leaving death in her wake, Mary Ann returned to the Robinson household, bringing her daughter, Isabella Mowbray, to live with them. But soon, Isabella developed severe stomach pains and died, followed closely by two of James Robinson's children, Elizabeth and James. All three children were buried within just a few days of each other in late April and early May of 1867. Mary Ann received yet another insurance payout for Isabella's death. Despite the mounting tragedies, James married Mary Ann on August 11, 1867, at St. Michael's in Bishop Wearmouth. That November, they welcomed their first child together, Margaret Isabella, also recorded as Mary Isabella, but heartbreak struck again when she became ill and died in February 1868. Their second child, George, was born on June 18, 1869. James's grief over their losses soon turned to suspicion. Mary Ann's persistent insistence that he ensure his life raised red flags. He discovered that she had secretly run up debts of £60 and stolen over £50 that she was supposed to bank. When he found out that Mary Ann had been forcing his older children to pawn household valuables, James had enough. He threw her out of the house, keeping custody of their son, George, and putting an end to Mary Ann's control over his household. Mary Ann found herself desperate and destitute, living on the streets until her fortunes took a turn when her friend Margaret Cotton introduced her to Margaret's brother, Frederick Cotton. Frederick was a pitman and a recent widower in Walbottle, Northumberland, who had already lost two of his four children. Margaret had been caring for his surviving sons, Frederick Jr. and Charles. But when she suddenly died in late March 1870 from a mysterious stomach ailment, Mary Ann stepped in to console the grieving Frederick Sr. It wasn't long before Mary Ann found herself pregnant for the 12th time. On September 17, 1870, Mary Ann and Frederick Cotton were married, though it was a bigamous union, as Mary Ann's previous marriage was still legally binding. Their son, Robert, was born early in 1871. But as fate would have it, Mary Ann soon discovered that her former lover, Joseph Nattrass, was living just 30 miles away in the village of West Auckland and was now single. Eager to rekindle the flame, she convinced Frederick to move the family closer to Nattrass. By December of that same year, Frederick Cotton was dead, reportedly from gastric fever. Not surprisingly, Mary Ann had taken out insurance policies on Frederick's life and those of his sons, setting the stage for yet another tragic and suspicious chapter in her life. After Frederick Cotton's death, Mary Ann wasted no time in moving forward with her plans. Joseph Nattrass, her former lover, quickly became her lodger, and soon after, Mary Ann secured employment as a nurse to an excise officer who was recovering from smallpox. While popular culture often refers to him as John Quick Manning, records reveal no trace of such a person. However, historical documents do mention a Richard Quickman, a customs and excise officer specialising in breweries, who might very well have been Mary Ann Cotton's true lover. Before long, Mary Ann became pregnant with her 13th child by this man. As if following a grim pattern, tragedy struck once more. Frederick Jr. died in March 1872, followed shortly by the infant Robert. Nattrass himself then fell ill with gastric fever and died, but not before revising his will in Mary Ann's favour. Meanwhile, the insurance policy Mary Ann had taken out on young Charles's life still remained, ominously, ready for collection. Mary Ann's downfall began with a seemingly routine request from a parish official named Thomas Riley. He asked her to help nurse a woman suffering from smallpox, but Mary Ann complained that the last surviving cotton boy, Charles Edward, was a burden. She asked Riley if he could be committed to the workhouse. Riley, who also served as West Auckland's assistant coroner, insisted that she accompany him if she wanted to make such a request. It was then that Mary Ann uttered the chilling words, "I won't be troubled long. He'll go like all the rest of the Cottons." Just 5 days later, Mary Ann informed Riley that the boy had died. Sensing something was amiss, Riley went straight to the village police and convinced the doctor to delay issuing a death certificate until the circumstances could be properly investigated. In a telling move, Mary Ann's first visit after Charles's death wasn't to the doctor, it was to the insurance office. But there, she received an unpleasant surprise. No money would be paid out until a death certificate was issued. An inquest was held, and the jury initially returned a verdict of natural causes. Mary Ann claimed that she had used arrowroot to treat Charles's illness, and accused Riley of making allegations against her out of spite because she had supposedly rejected his advances. However, local newspapers soon caught wind of the story. They began to uncover a disturbing pattern. Mary Ann had moved around northern England, leaving behind a trail of death. 3 husbands, a lover, a friend, her mother, and 11 children, all of whom had died of mysterious stomach fevers. As the shocking details came to light, it became clear that Mary Ann Cotton was not just a grieving widow and mother, but a woman whose life was steeped in dark and deadly secrets. Rumours quickly turned into suspicion, prompting a scientific investigation that would seal Mary Ann Cotton's fate. Dr. William Byers Kilburn, who had attended to young Charles, had kept samples from the boy, and tests revealed the presence of arsenic. Alarmed, he informed the police, leading to Mary Ann's arrest and the exhumation of Charles's body. Charged with his murder, Mary Ann's trial was delayed until after she gave birth to her 13th and final child, Margaret Edith Quick Manning Cotton, on January 7, 1873, while in Durham jail. Societal response to Mary Ann's alleged crimes was one of horror and fascination. The public was captivated by the idea of a woman capable of such heinous acts, challenging contemporary notions of femininity and morality. As the trial approached, the media sensationalized her story, turning her into a notorious figure, forever altering the perception of women in society. Her trial began at Durham Assizes on March 5, 1873. It was a sensational event that captured the public's attention across England. As the proceedings unfolded, the courtroom was filled with spectators eager to witness the fate of the woman accused of multiple murders. Key events during the trial included testimonies from medical professionals who confirmed the presence of arsenic in the bodies of her deceased husbands and children. The prosecution presented a compelling case, arguing that Mary Ann had systematically poisoned her loved ones for financial gain, highlighting the suspicious timing of their deaths and the insurance claims that followed. Mary Ann's defence was handled by Thomas Campbell Foster, who argued that Charles had died from inhaling arsenic used as a dye in the green wallpaper of the Cotton home. The defence suggested that a mistake at the chemist's shop might have led to arsenic being used instead of bismuth powder, commonly used to treat diarrhea. Despite these arguments, the jury took only 90 minutes to return a guilty verdict. On March 20th, The Times reported that after her conviction, Mary Ann initially exhibited strong emotion, but soon reverted to a cold, reserved demeanour. She harboured a strong belief that royal clemency would save her and continued to assert her innocence until the end. Despite several petitions to the Home Secretary, her fate was sealed. Mary Ann Cotton was hanged at Durham County Jail on March 24, 1873, by the executioner William Calcraft. In a grim twist of fate, she did not die from a quick drop breaking her neck, but instead from slow strangulation as the rope was too short. Some suspect it was done deliberately. Of her 13 children, only 2 survived her: Margaret Edith, born just before the trial, and George, her son from her marriage to James Robinson. Mary Ann Cotton's life and crimes present a shocking narrative that continues to captivate and horrify. From her tragic upbringing and the untimely deaths of her husbands and children to her eventual trial and conviction for murder, her story is steeped in darkness and intrigue. The historical significance of her case lies not only in the gruesome details, but also in the societal implications it raises about women, crime, and morality in the 19th century. If you found this exploration of Mary Ann Cotton's life as intriguing as we did, we invite you to subscribe to our channel for more captivating content. Don't forget to like and share this video with friends who enjoy delving into the mysteries of true crime and history. Join us as we continue to uncover the stories that shape our understanding of the past.